Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Lori Stohs. What you think of me is none of my business. What do you think of that statement? That was a wise statement by Wayne Dyer. And when we think of something like that, we think about approval. Are we an approval addict? Do we worry too much about what other people think? We think back, many of us maybe have been in a position, some of us may be in that net right now, wondering, what do people think about me? And getting caught up in, am I being approved? What do they think? What should I be doing? How do I make this decision? Because I don't know what other people think of me. Does it really matter? Why does it matter? Do we really worry about what other people think and that we value their opinion more than our own? Let's step back and think about that. Some of it might be a little bit about who we are, what our make is. When we think about our natural personalities, some of us are a little bit more about being approved and being viewed in the eyes of others as important. And so it's a little harder for us to detach from what others think of us. Others haven't really cared, never will care, and go on their own. And some of you who are addicts of others' approval are wondering, how do I get like that? Well, that's not always an easy thing to do because we're all different. But part of it is first being aware of, number one, am I seeking others' approval more than my own? When we think about that, sometimes it's really wondering is, what is the value that I feel about myself? What is my own opinion of me? Do I feel like I'm important, or do I seek others' approvals too much? Really, at the end of the day, they're not thinking about you. Most of the time people are thinking about themselves. But if you are one that gets caught up in that, you're worrying about what other people think, but they're really worried about themselves. I think there's a joke about, when you go to a party, somebody's always worried about what they're wearing. Well, it doesn't really matter because they're worried about how they look more than they're worried about you. So they're comparing themselves to you sometimes. So it's really stepping back and thinking about how much are you getting caught up in that approval of others. We first have to think about ourselves. So when you think about how do I get past that, if you are one that seeks approvals of others and you're not making decisions or you're thinking about other people's opinions, you have to first step back and say, what is me? Who am I? What can I bring? How unique am I? And let's celebrate my uniquenesses. Sometimes with this approval addiction, there's so much about I want to be like others. And really we first have to say is, who am I? And what do I bring? And what's my value? And I'm proud of my value. And so sometimes if you feel like you are surrounded by people who you feel like are giving you feedback about yourself, you have to first say, that's their filter, that's their perspective of you, right? You have to say, this is who I am and this is why I do what I do. That's how we start healing this. Standing up for yourself and loving yourself and knowing who you are and knowing what you can bring to others and saying, I'm making this decision because of, and being proud of that. So I think that's really important, is it has to come from us first inner. We can't be expecting that from outside all the time, because if that's the case, nothing will ever be good enough for us and we will never feel good enough. So I think first we have to look at that as who we are. The other thing we have to look at is also when we're wanting others to treat us a certain way, we have to be treating ourselves that way. So we have to treat ourselves that way first. If we're wanting that approval, find that approval in yourself first. Because if we're always, again, seeking things from the outside, it's never going to be fulfilled until we're fulfilled inside first. That's most important. I think the other thing to think about is when we think about ourselves, is that what do we want to be and how can we just continue sharing that with others and making sure that we're conscientious of who we are. Now, is there a time for us that we do need to maybe step back and look for feedback? So part of it is the difference also between of approval and feedback. So when we think about, again, being conscious of who we are, it's still okay to get feedback from others to say, am I heading the right direction here? Or is there something that I need to know about myself? So there's that self-awareness piece of ourselves, as well as that feedback from others. Feedback from others versus approval are two different things. So I think that's something we need to think about as well. We just can't go on with our lives plowing forward and not being aware. If we have low self-awareness or never getting feedback from others, of course, that's very different than seeking approval. For positive charge this week, first, are you an approval addict? And two, has the fear of what others think gotten in your way? And three, how can you overcome the approval addiction? It's really important for us to know who we are and be comfortable with who we are and value who we are. If we take others' opinions above ourselves, that's when we need to be concerned about being an approval addict. Know who you are, claim it, and be the best that you can be every day. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.